Okay, so the first step we're going to do, or going to take, I should say, is we are going to create a new project. And we're going to create that new project, and we're going to create that new project and make a new repository for it. So before we get too far down, since we want to save our code, so that way we don't have to start over if something happens. So we're going to create a new repository. We're going to call it COVID API client. Say create. And then what we're going to do is we're going to double click and get into that particular repository. Boom, there we go. Go to changes. We see we've got our changes already here. Next, we're going to connect this repository to our GitHub account. And actually, I'll go ahead and connect it to the GitHub account. And I'll get into my GitHub account. Bam. See all my stuff pop up over here, and we're going to check in our changes. We're going to commit our changes locally. And we're going to sync up our changes and publish that to GitHub. Bam, like this. And we're going to say this is our new client repo for our repo for our COVID-19 API client. Say publish. And what that's going to do over on our GitHub account, it's going to create a new repository. And it's going to be called COVID-19 or COVID API client. There it is. So now any changes that we make to our repository locally, we can check up, or we can check in our changes. Next step we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. And we're going to put this particular project, since I am working with the .NET frame, no, we'll make this a core app. And I think I've explained it before. .NET Core apps can run on multiple operating systems, whereas .NET Framework apps can only run on Windows operating systems. So we're going to make this a console application, because what we want this client to do is we want it on its start, we want it to go out, check for data, grab the data, check to see if there's a file already. If there's a file already, we can just append the data to the file. If not, then we'll create a new file, and we might just create a new file because it's a cleaner, easier way to do it. And then close all the connections and everything else. So we'll just make this a .NET Core app, and it's going to be in C#. It's going to be, we're going to click Next, and then we're going to change our repository by clicking here in the little ellipsis, and go up a repository and go into the COVID API client. We're going to select that folder, and we're going to call this COVID-19 client. And it's going to have the same solution. We're going to place the solution in the project in the same directory. So we're going to click Create. And now, on our repository, let's see, source, repos, we have a solution in here now. And this is creating in the side here, and I don't know why it's taking so long. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to secure our API data. So we've got our API here, and we're ready to go for that. Close that ugly guy's face. And in the API, we need to understand how to use the API. So we'll need to view the documentation of how do we use the API? How do we get data from it? What commands do we send to it? What parameters do we send to it? So for example, here's a summary one, and this gives you, when you come over here, it gives you, oh, Carol, it gives you an idea of what a query would look like right here. So if we passed https api.covid19api.com/countries, we get all of these countries back. Okay. We can also do by county, as by country here. We do countries. We can do all the data at the same time. And I'm wondering if we can do state data. That'd be nice to know if we could do state data. Country, and status. So this is just grabbing country data. It's not grabbing state data. We might want to look for a different API, but in the meantime, we're going to use this one. So our Visual Studio has already created our COVID-19 program over here. So let's go ahead and check it in as our master. So we're going to go back to home here, say changes. We see that our new API client has added some files over here to our repository. So I'm just checking in a very bare bones basic example or a version of this. I'm going to click sync. Let me go back a second here. So I've committed my changes to my master repository here on my local machine. Now I'm ready to sync that up to my remote repository. So to do that, I come over here and I say sync. I'll say push. And now it's pushing up the code. And my code, if I go over to my GitHub account that I already closed here, because I wasn't looking at that dude. And I click repositories. Yeah, what's up? I am. Which check? Oh. Oh, okay. Uh-huh. So when you go into the client here, in the client app, you'll see that we now have our code over here. Boom. And it's real bare bones basic. It's our Hello World app. So now what we can do is we can create a branch off of our code base here. We're going to call it COVID-19 client, and we'll slash, and we'll call it iteration 1 or something like that. And the reason why we're going to do that is we're going to leave the master code alone, and as we make changes to it and we verify that the changes work, we'll push it up into the master branch and merge it up there, and then we can stage our changes. So we're going to create this branch just like so, and I'm going to make a few quick changes to this branch. The first thing I'm going to do is above my class, I'm going to put some comment lines here. So 3 slashes gives me a summary. COVID-19 client. And we'll do it that way. And we'll just say a client to consume data from the, and we'll go back over to our API, copy the URL, API. And then instead of this saying hello world, get rid of that. We're gonna do some things here as well. Save that, come over to hit home, click changes, and any changes that you make from this point on will be in the working branch of your code. They will not be reflected in the main master branch of your code. So I'm going to say create a comments, commented out hello world, something like that. And I'm not going to commit it quite yet, because one thing that I want to do is I need to go back over to my API and view the documentation like we were doing before. I've already got it open here. And let's see if we can find out what data we're going to get back from our API. Because you need to know what information you're going to get back from the API to be able to form your comma delimited file, because all of these different methods over here or operations are going to return you different data. This one returns cases by country, first recorded. This one returns first recorded case from a country. This one returns different, and you'll see that parameters change. This one only has a parameter of the country. This one does deaths, and it gets a date range there. So we've got all kind of different data here that we can grab. We've got latitudes and longitudes and all that kind of stuff. It shows you there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to parse out, we're going to have to parse out the information that we're going to grab from the specific operation that we're going to use. So the first one we're probably going to use is the default one, because that's the one that that's the country one, right? It's the one that is at the main site there, and it appears that it's getting all of the information here. And so, and actually what it's doing is it's telling us that of what all these operations do, it looks like to me. I'm not sure. So we'll probably use the summary one instead. Summary one appears to be the one that we were looking at earlier. And so maybe this is the one we're going to use right there. We're going to use that one right there. So we see that we have a header or a main, we have a main dictionary here called global, and it's got all the information. It's a summary of all the information. Then under here, we've got an array of dictionaries here with countries inside of them, country codes, slug, which is probably some kind of a key for another API method, confirm cases, new confirmed, total confirmed, number of deaths, total deaths, new recovered, and then the date that it was last reported. So like here, you see the last time this was reported in Afghanistan was April 5th. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a model of information. And we're going to have two models. We're going to have a main model for our global. We're going to have country models for this right here. And in our global model, we're going to have to return a list or an array, or a collection, I should say, of countries. Because if you look at this, the global model is a parent of these countries here. So if we looked at this, if we queried this API here in general, like we did down here, not that one. Let's do the country one here, this one right here. And we look, we can see that countries is an array of countries. And I misspoke in the previous video with 247 countries because it's an index of 0. So it starts at 0. So 0 is actually your first one. So it's 247 countries reporting data. So we've got our global, and we've got an array of countries underneath our global that tie up to this here. So if we added up all of the confirmed cases, all of the deaths, all of the total recovered, it would equal up to these columns up here. Okay. So what we need to do first is we need to create a model for this one right here. Let's do that first. That's fairly easy, and it looks like it's going to be all numeric data. So let's come over to our client, and actually, we will grab this information right here. So I'm looking at the raw JSON here. I'm going to copy that, go over to my client, come down here, put a couple of comment lines and paste that in there. And what I need to do is create a model. And what a model is basically a series of containers that will contain all of the data that I'm going to pull from the API. So my new confirmed number is going to be in an object or property of the class that I'm about to create. So I'm going to create this class and call it global COVID. I'm calling it global COVID because I don't want to use the word global because that might be a keyword. And so now all I'm going to do is I can copy this information here, get rid of it up here, and actually do this global COVID class contains data, all aggregated global data, something like that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to turn that into a multi-line comment. You'll see why in a minute. I can do this, boom, 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 boom. This is just how I do it. You don't have to do it this way. What the heck are you doing? Okay, so this is going to make it a lot easier for me because what I can now do, take that last comment line there, that should be on its own line. I'm going to hold down the Alt key on my keyboard, take my mouse and put it right there and drag down to almost all of those double quotes and hit delete. And then I'll delete the next two ones here. You're probably like, why is he doing this? I'll show you here in a minute. These are the shortcuts of Visual Studio that you can use. I'm going to get rid of all of the numeric data to the right of my lines of, to my column names. So these are the fields that I need to create right here. If I copy this and I paste that in there, I'm going to start getting an error because Visual Studio doesn't like that. So now I'm ready to create, and I know these are all numeric fields. So I'm going to Alt, hold my mouse down, left click, holding the mouse down, and I can say public long. And a long, what it is in Visual Studio or in C#, it's a 64-bit integer. That means it can hold a really large number. If you don't know what that is, Google C# numeric data types. So now I'm going to just say, put my curly brace, get, and set there. Go to copy that line, and then I'm going to paste, 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 paste. Bam. I've got all of my fields for my global COVID class ready to go, except for the one that I need for my countries. Now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to call this countries, class countries. And before I get too down the hill here, I'm going to, I want to make this enumerable. Public list of countries. Get and set that one too. Now you'll see this little red squiggly line, and that's because I don't have the system dot global dot generic, I think it is. Collections, system dot collections dot generic. So when I click that, let me undo that and show you what I did here. So what I did was up here, you have to have a using for that. It's just like in Python when you have include statements, or it's Python does that. You have include statements at the top where you can bring in libraries from other classes. This is no different. This is all object-oriented programming. Java does this, Visual Basic does this, Python does this, C# does this, C++ does this. So you can grab objects and variables and the like and methods from other classes. System.collections.generic is just a class of the .NET framework. So if I hit Control, period, I can see that it will automatically insert my using formula up here. So now it's put a line in there, right there. And now that I don't get this error. So now all I need to do is just build out my country data. So now I've got all of this information here. So I just grab one of these right here, just like I did before. I'll make this into another multi-line comment. Do the same thing I did there. Bam, bam, bam. Boom, there we go. And let's take these longs and we'll make them integers. Surely we won't have that many. I pray to God we don't have that many deaths. If we've got that many deaths to fill up a 64-bit integer, we're in trouble. You know what? Let me do it. Work smarter, not harder, Alex. Alt, drag down, and int. Like that at the same time. So now I'll do the exact same thing that I did above here. Get rid of these little lines here. This is actually going to be a little easier. And Let me copy this. That way I don't mess something up here. Boom. Okay. I copied this one here. And then I'm going to copy the get set as well. Like this. Ooh. Okay. And then I'll do the Alt, bring my mouse down again, click, and I'll say string. And then I've got to go back and I've got to get rid of the ones that are not string data. Now, the ones that are not string data will not have double quotes in them. So the first three are string. This one is going to be an integer. Matter of fact, all the rest of them are going to be integers all the way up till the date. So I'll do that. That's Alt, left click again. And then on this last one, this date is going to be date time. Now I'm ready to copy this group of data here, group of lines here. Paste that in there. Am I recording this? I am, okay. I can't remember if I was recording this or not. And then I can get rid of all of this information here. And then do the same thing that I did here. Just throw another line in here, say country, global country. Actually, we'll make this country instead of countries. And we've got to come back up here and get rid of countries, country. And we can't do that. We'll call this country data. Country data. That country data. Now, we should probably put these two classes. You know what? Let's do that. Because I know there's a guy in my job that would be fussing at me right about now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a models directory, add a new folder and call it models. This is where our data models are going to be kept. We're just going to add a couple of new items. Class, we're going to call this global COVID, like that. And then we'll create another class, add new item. What do we call this other one? Just copy it. And new item. Come down here to class, paste that in there, add that one. Now we'll just grab this data here, put it into her, grab this data here, and put it into here. We'll get an error on the last line there. Let's save that. Save that, save that. We'll come back to our main program and get rid of these two classes now because they're in other files. Actually, let me grab this global COVID one here and put that where it's supposed to be. And do the same thing here for the country data class and put that there. Save both of those. All right. So now we've got our two models or two data models. And if we want to create a new instance of or new object of the main data model, our country data model, our global COVID data model, we just come in here, we say new. No, actually not new. We say global COVID GC equals new global COVID. And what will happen is we've got to make a reference to our models. And so if we hover over that, hit Control period, it'll bring up the folder. I would click that. And now we can say GC dot countries, and we have a list of countries, or GC dot global equals 0, something like that, you know. We've got our global number there. And maybe we need to play around with the, maybe instead of us calling that, we won't need that one. That's the name of the class. We don't need that one. We'll need the country, we won't need that one. Let's save that. Let's save that. We're going to get an error now. That's no longer there. We just care about the numbers. GC dot. We've got our new confirmed, new deaths, new recovered, total confirmed, total deaths, total recovered. We've got our countries, and that's our list of country data. So we've got our containers created. Now what we need to do, the next step in the next video, what we'll do, you know what, let's get in the practice of doing this too. Since we've made these changes, we're gonna go ahead and check in our changes. So we're gonna come over Team Explorer, click Changes, and we're gonna get rid of that. We're gonna say Created Data Models. Data Model Classes. Say Commit All. We'll sync that up, push it to our GitHub account. And if I refresh, oh, you know what? I'm not pushing it up to the master yet. I've got a branch now. So if I come down here to my new branch, I'll see that I have the data models. And here's my country class model. And here's my COVID model, my main COVID model. And then here's my new instantiation of the COVID model here. I'm not going to do it there, but I just want to kind of show you what I'm doing there. And that is now in a separate branch from our master code. If we go into our master code, obviously we don't have our, we don't have our data models because it's separate. So now we can make sure that if we mess something up, we've got a base of code to go back to. So the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to create a method or a couple of methods that is going to reach out to our API, and it's going to grab data. That'll be our next video. So until then, I apparently have a task to do. have to do. And I will see you all in the next video.